So help you God? Thank you. Please have a seat.
Go ahead and remove your mask if you want to. Can you state your name for the record and spell your last name?
My name is Kristen Chapman, C-H-A-P-N-A-N, and my maiden name is Wilson, W-I-L-S-O-N.
And when did you get married?
In October of 2019.
And so in June of 2019, were you Kristen Wilson at that point?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Ms. Wilson, do you know Geoffrey Paschel?
Yes, I do.
And how do you know him?
He is my ex-fiance.
And do you see Mr. Paschel in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Could you point to him for us?
Yes, he is right there.
And could you just tell us maybe what color shirt he's wearing?
Blue shirt and gray jacket.
And if we could have the record reflect she has identified the defendant. How long were the two of you dating?
A year and a half, and 3 months of that was the engagement.
Okay. So in June, specifically June the 9th of 2019, you all were engaged at that point?
Yes, we were.
Were you living together?
Yes, he had a lot of stuff at my house, but he still had his residence as well.
Okay. And I want to talk to you specifically about the events of June the 9th, 2019, okay? Do you recall that day?
Yes.
Now, I want to back up before the early morning hours. What had the two of you all done the night before?
We had gone to dinner.
And I'm going to have you, maybe you'll just pull that up.
Sorry.
Soft-spoken.
Just keep hitting this trash can. We had gone to dinner at the North Shore Brasserie. We were there for several hours. We had drinks and dinner, and when we left, we went back to my house. We had plans to go meet a friend at Roosters, which is right near my house in Rocky Hill. So we stopped to let my dog out, and I walked her by myself up the street to the cul-de-sac while he stayed at my house. And I returned home. I walked back up the street. I texted my friend Katie and told her that we were leaving and we would see her shortly. She was also on her way there. I remember sending the text message. I remember exactly where I was standing in the street in front of my neighbor's house. And I remember walking back up the driveway. But the next thing I remember, he was beating me.
And when you say he, are you talking about Mr. Paschel?
Yes, Geoffrey.
So just to back up a little bit, do you remember what time it was you all got back to your house?
It would have been around 11 o'clock. Because I texted Katie at 11 o'clock saying we were on our way. So 10:45, 10:30, 10:45.
Okay. And you said you all had dinner and drinks. What were you
Yes.
drinking?
Champagne.
Do you recall how much you had to drink?
I recall that I had 3 glasses of champagne.
Who was driving that night?
I drove.
Okay. And did Mr. Paschel have anything to drink?
Yes.
And what do you recall what he was drinking?
Double whiskey and Cokes.
Okay. And so when you get back in the house, you said, tell us exactly what you remember as soon as you get back into the house after walking the dog.
After coming up my driveway, the next thing I remember, I was on the floor in front of my staircase that leads to the upstairs, and he had me by the back of my head and was hitting my face into the floor, and I was screaming for him to stop.
Okay. Is that all that happened, or?
No. From there, he dragged me up the stairs. It's not quite a split level, but there's like 4 stairs that lead up to the bedroom, and it's hardwood floors, and he was dragging me by my head and by my hair. He had me kind of by the back of the neck, and we went up the stairs towards the bedrooms, and I blacked out again. I lost consciousness.
About how long did all of this take place, if you remember?
If my best estimate would be about 30 minutes.
Okay. And during that time, did you try and get away or anything?
When I was screaming, I was trying to get away from him, but I couldn't. He's too strong. He was holding me down on the ground, and then he was pushing me around, and I could not get away.
And so after the physical attack stopped, what happened?
So I remember going up the stairs, and then that's the last thing I remember. I don't know what happened up there, but there's blood splattered down my bedroom door, so something happened up there. The next thing I remember, I was in the corner of my kitchen, and he was shoving me up against the wall, and then he got me back down on the floor in the kitchen and was hitting my head on the floor in the kitchen, and I lost consciousness again. The next thing I remember, when I regained consciousness, I was sitting on my couch in my living room, and I was looking at a wall. They've got front windows, and then there's a wall next to it, and there was blood splattered down the wall. I don't even remember being against that wall or it's in a corner that I don't remember being in, but I was sitting on the couch, and my face was dripping blood down my chin and onto my couch, and he was pacing, not saying anything, but just pacing behind the other end of my sectional, which had been overturned, flipped upside down.
And at some point, did you go upstairs to the bedroom?
Yes. Eventually, he stopped pacing, and he told me to go to bed, to get up and go wash my face and go to bed. So he followed me up the stairs into the bathroom, which is right next to my bedroom. And he wouldn't turn the lights on, so I couldn't see my face. It was dark. He made me wash my face. He grabbed a piece of toilet paper and handed it to me and told me to blow my nose to get the blood out, and then he flushed that down the toilet. And then said, go to bed. And I did, because I didn't want it to continue.
When you say it?
The abuse. I mean, if I told him no or I tried to get away, he was 100% going to start hitting me again, forcing me.
Did you have a cell phone or anything at this point?
I did own a cell phone. I didn't know where it was during this whole situation. When I laid down in bed, he had my phone, and he also had his MacBook. He also had his computer. And he sat on the other edge of the bed on the opposite side, and I was pretending to sleep and trying not to lose consciousness. I was just really focused on staying conscious because I knew I had to get away at some point, or I didn't know what was going to happen. So I kept kind of opening my eyes a little bit to look and see what he was doing. And he had my phone. He was in my messages. I saw him in my social media accounts, especially my messages of my social media accounts. He had deleted a bunch of voicemails once I finally got my phone turned back on. It's essentially like he erased every trace of him through my phone. Every message, he deleted our whole text conversation, so I didn't have any of that. And this went on for somewhere between an hour and 2 hours, and I was just trying to stay conscious. Eventually, he had the sound on the phone, so when he turned the power off, like when he locked the screen, I heard it, and I heard him set it down on the bedside table on that side of the bed, and he tried to console me, like came over and put his arm on me and was trying to apologize and touch me, and I told him not to touch me. And as soon as he laid down, stopped moving, and got situated on his side of the bed, I jumped and I ran. I ran straight out the front door, and I went straight to Lauren's house.
And when you ran out the front door, did you grab anything, or did you just take off?
No, I just took off.
Did you have your car keys?
No, he had my car keys.
I'm sorry, say that again.
He had my car keys. I found out later when I got home to get my stuff. He had my car keys.
Okay. And what did you do when you went to Miss Googe's house?
Asked her to call 911.
Okay. And did you wait there until the police came?
Yes, I did.
And did the police come out and take pictures of your injuries?
Yes, they sent a forensics officer to take pictures of the injuries. They'd sent an ambulance as well, I believe, but Lauren ended up taking me to the hospital because it's the hospital she worked at. And the officer said it was okay that she did that, so they let me go with her.
Matt Pritchett.
Matt?
Ms. Chapman, can I show you some photos? Look at those for me. And tell me, do those photos fairly and accurately depict the injuries that you sustained that night and everything that you've been talking about?
Yes, they do.
And do these appear to be the photos that were taken in Ms. Fuge's kitchen?
Yes, this is Lauren's kitchen.
Your Honor, this time I would ask that these 10 photographs be the next numbered exhibits.
Was it being collective or?
I've went ahead and pretty much them just individually, just in case we wanted to talk about any of them.
Okay, so that'll be 3 through 12? Okay, any objection?
No.
They'll be received.
And not published, Your Honor.
You may.
Okay, so, the area of your head there, your forehead, is that, can you tell us how that injury was caused?
That was him hitting the front of my head into the floors in front of the stairs.
Is that another angle of that?
Yes, yes it is.
And then here, tell us what's on your elbow and forearm there.
So my bet, I can only assume this is from being dragged. I have the same marks on, or similar marks on my knees, and it felt like rug burn. So, yeah.
And that, is that the area of your knees there?
Yes.
And then lip there. And then, just for purposes of the record, is this your back area?
It is my back, yes.
Again, is that your back?
Yes, it is.
Do you recall how those came to be?
Just being shoved into walls and furniture repeatedly.
Just another side view of your forehead there. Put the lights back on. Did you, so you did go to the hospital, correct?
Yes, I did.
And were you diagnosed with anything at the hospital?
A concussion.
Sorry, what was that?
A concussion. Yes. This looks like my medical records from Park West from that night, but I've never seen this before.
Okay.
You can have it, yeah.
Judge, it's not maybe that's, but this would be,
Well, Your Honor,
13.
in this instance, since the witness did not identify those, we would object to their admissibility and ask that they just be marked for ID.
Judge, can we approach?
They say a picture's worth 1,000 words. And these jurors just saw such a story through those photographs of this alleged victim with that knot on her forehead, as the prosecutor described it, the size of a fist, her bloody lower lip, the bruises on her forearm, her elbow, her leg, and her back. The ones on her back, she said, caused by repeatedly being shoved into furniture. That big knot in the middle of her forehead, she said, being caused by her head being bashed against the floor right by her front set of stairs in her own home. The home that she said she had to escape that night or she didn't know what else was going to happen. She said it was all done at the hands of this man who at the time was experiencing lots of fame on the show 90 Day Fiance. And I would like to know when the show was taped too. That's something we can look into because we know this incident is said to have happened in June of 2019, and we know that fans of the show were so outraged at these allegations that surfaced while the show was airing that they petitioned to have him off that final episode where all of the stars tell all, and they didn't want him there just based on those allegations because they are so horrific. Let's go back in live.
Did you also, the following day, did you go to the Family Justice Center here in Knoxville?
I did, yes.
And did they take some additional photos of your injuries?
They did, yes.
May I approach, Judge? These photos I'm handing you appear to be accurate copies of some of the photographs that were taken at the Family Justice Center.
Yes.
All right, let's not do that, so please see the next number of exhibits, there are 20 photographs total.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
14 to 32.
Should be 14 through 30 for the received.
Permission to publish, Judge.
You may.
And what are we looking at in this photograph here?
That is the back of my neck.
Okay, and do you recall how those injuries were sustained?
I was pushed into a wall pretty hard, so I would assume that's where that came from.
Did your face, the injuries to your face, did they kind of evolve over the days following?
Yes, they did. That's why they had forensics come back out and take pictures, because the bruising had kind of changed.
Is this bruising on your hands?
Yeah, from catching myself, or attempting to catch myself. Both of my palms right there were bruised.
Did you take some photographs on your own phone in the days following, even after these were taken?
Yes, I did.
Did you also take some photographs of some of the things that you saw in your house?
Yes, I did.
At this point, we would object based on its cumulative and would not be relevant under 401. We've seen pictures from the night of and the day before. So unless they're different injuries, we would object.
Okay, I guess, let me take a look at it if you guys would approach. And while they're approaching, I might have missed this, man, but when were the pictures taken at the Family Justice Center?
Everything happened on the 9th, which was a Sunday. I went the 10th, which was a Monday,
Okay,
June 10th.
thank you, ma'am.
Yes.
What I find to be the most terrifying thing about domestic violence is not only are they crimes of violence, but they are crimes of secrecy. And the face that batterers often show the world isn't the face that they show the person they're abusing. Now, Geoffrey Paschel is the accused in this case. He sits there cloaked in the presumption of innocence. And it will stay that way unless and until the state of Tennessee proves him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And if these allegations made by Kristen Chapman, his fiance at the time of this alleged incident, are true, if they are true, I want you to just think for a moment how tough that is to go into a public courtroom and tell the world about someone grabbing your neck, bashing your head against the floor, beating you so badly you black out, all in your own house, and you can't call for help because this person has taken your cell phone, unbeknownst to you, also taken your car keys, deleted himself from your social media so there wouldn't be a connection from things in your phone. Secrecy, and it's sinister. These allegations are so sinister that this woman is making against the man that she loved, that dated her for multiple years. They were planning to be married. All of this happening back in June of 2019. And although she's quite composed today, I just want to make the point how difficult it is for survivors of domestic violence to speak about what's happened to them. Now, Geoffrey Paschel maintains his innocence here, saying that he didn't cause all these injuries the jury just saw displayed on those photographs, saying through his attorney in opening statements that she injured herself as she was leaving the house, and the jury will be the judge. let's talk a little bit about what the jury might be thinking after seeing these awful photographs. Let me bring in trial attorney Imran Ansari, standing by in New York. He also has experience as a prosecutor. Imran, tell me your thoughts after seeing these photos, please.
Sure. Well, Julie, this is the moment where the jury really gets to see the viciousness of the allegations that this defendant is facing. And you saw the photographs, and it appears that this was a brutal beating. And the victim has that confidence of taking the stand. And you mentioned it's a very hard thing to do, a victim of domestic violence like this, to take the stand, face her abuser, and testify in open court. And we see that she's doing that with confidence and composure, while the jury is also seeing the photographs of her injuries. And it seems to be brutal. And now the defense is putting forward this argument that she was belligerent and some of these injuries were self-inflicted. I'm going to go as far as to say that they don't really comport with self-inflicted injuries. They seem to be consistent with that of trauma inflicted by another. And I think that the jury, seeing these photographs, with the prosecution's argument, with the testimony coming out here in court, will find this a compelling case for the prosecution. Of course, we have yet to see the cross-examination of this witness, but I think right now, in terms of the prosecution's case, in terms of the photographs that they see, it's really corroborating the story of a brutal assault here.
Oh, I'm with you. So well said, Imran. Thank you for that. And drawing on experience as a former prosecutor, and I'm sure you know this too, Imran, and I can't stress it enough when we talk about DV. DV is not about anger management. It is not about somebody who can't control themselves and has outbursts and engages in beatings because they're just so enraged and they can't help themselves. No, it's about power and control, methodically controlling their victim through using violence. And when she told that story, all I kept thinking of is the word control. When she said he grabbed her by her neck, control. When she said that after he bashed her head on the floor and she blacked out, control. He dragged her up the stairs, control. She said then he made her wash her face, forced her to wash her face, control. Forced her to blow her nose, control. Forced her to go lay down in the bed, control. As she was saying that, I was getting chills up and down my arms, just thinking about what she says she endured. Imran, tell me, I mean, you know about DV. I mean, having been a prosecutor, you understand the dynamic. Were you thinking the same thing here?
No, absolutely. Her, recounting that harrowing experience, you really get the sense of her being trapped, as you said, being controlled. And the way she states that she went along with it, she blows her nose, she cleans herself up, and that idea of the abuser directing the victim to clean themselves up and just go to sleep, it really sort of resonates, and I'm sure it resonated with this jury. And the way she said that she went to sleep because she just wanted to avoid further assault, further abuse is really compelling, and I think that her account of it will resonate with this jury as this trial continues.
Oh, I agree, Imran. It looks like they're done with the sidebar. Let's listen in together live.
Did you also take photographs of the way that your house was after the attack?
Yes.
Did you observe anything? I think you mentioned earlier that there was some blood spatter. Did you take photographs of those as well?
Yes, I did.
And would you recognize those photographs?
Yes, I would.
May I approach, Judge? Do these appear to be the photographs we were just talking about?
Yes. Yes, they are.
And did you take those with your personal cell phone?
I did, yes.
Around this time we would ask. It's pre-marked as 45 through 52. We enter this next exhibits.
Any objection?
Same objection.
That'll be noted, they'll be received.
And now publish all of those that we just went through, Judge.
You may.
what are we looking at in this photo?
There was blood dropped on each of my stairs, and that's what that is.
And how many stairs, again, did you say there were from the living room to the,
There are 4 leading upstairs, but these are actually my stairs leading downstairs.
okay. And what is this?
That is a wall in my living room.
And what is the substance that we're looking at there on the wall?
That is my blood.
And this one?
Is a Yeti cooler, again with blood on it. That is the wall in the kitchen with the blood splatter on it.
It's kind of
And
hard
that
to see
is
this one, but.
my kitchen floor, yeah, with the droplets. That is a light switch in my living room.
And is the substance that we're looking at?
Is blood, yes.
That one. And then is this photos of your injuries in the days after?
Yes, it is. That's actually right, when I got home from the hospital.
Okay.
That is also right when I got home from the hospital in the morning of June 9th.
What number? Can you make that clear to the record?
Yes, Judge, I will. All right, so we just looked at the photograph of your forehead there that's been marked as Exhibit 34, and you said that that one was right after you got home from the hospital.
That's correct.
And then the photograph of your neck here that we're looking at
Is also,
before, that was marked as 36. That was also, okay.
yes.
What is this? Is that your leg?
It is my leg. That was taken at my parents' house. I can't recall the date off the top of my head.
Was it in the few days after?
Yes,
Okay.
I stayed with my parents. I did not feel safe in my home, so I went and stayed with them for several weeks, if not months.
Mouth again there. Your foot. And then right up there at the top of your foot, kind of at the bend of your foot, is that where your skin is peeling there?
Yes.
Let me pull these just to make sure. Not make it into my house. All right, I'm gonna pull up a photo of what's been marked as 35 here. Is that the days following? Just, again, another photo of your face there.
Yes.
I think I got it all. That one down. Ms. Chapman, where is your home located? What was the address?
1425 Aldenwood Lane.
And everything that you have described to us today, did that all occur in Knox County?
Yes.
Judge, I will pass the witness at this time.
Thank you, Jim. Cross-examination. The jury has been sworn, the indictment's been read, the defendant's pled not guilty. The state is recognized at this time for its opening statement. General?
Thank you, Judge. June the 8th of 2019 is a Saturday. over the next day or two is that at that time, Kristen Wilson was engaged to the defendant, and that Saturday started out perfect. The two of them went to dinner, they stayed there for about 3 hours. Kristen's friend was the server there. They had a nice meal, they had some drinks, they talked with friends. They then went back to Kristen's house to let her dog out, regroup for a minute, and then they actually had plans to go out and meet some more friends. You're going to hear from Miss Wilson. She's going to tell you that when they got back to her house that night, she took the dog for a walk. Mr. Paschel stayed inside the home. She's going to tell you that right before she walked back in the house, she stopped in front of her neighbor's house. She texted her friend. She says, "Hey, we're about to leave. We'll be there in a minute." She never made it. She never made it to meet her friends after that. Because what you're going to learn is when she walked back in that house, she was attacked by this defendant. You're going to hear from her how he grabbed her by the back of her head and slammed her head into the hardwood floor repeatedly. You're going to hear how he grabbed her by the back of her neck, drug her around the house, drug her up the stairs. You're going to see where she had blood on her face and was trying to reach for a light switch. You're going to see blood smears on the light switches. You're going to see blood splatter on the wall, dripped on the floor. You're going to hear how she tried to get away and she couldn't. You're going to see scrapes on her knees, scrapes on her elbows, bruises everywhere. Bruises on the back of her neck where he grabbed her when he was slamming her head on the floor. You're going to hear how this happened for what seemed like forever. Ms. Wilson's going to tell you that she blacked out multiple times, lost consciousness because of the injury to her head. And then she's going to tell you that the defendant told her, "Go wash your face." After he took her phone and took her car keys, "Go wash your face." So she did. She was terrified. She just wanted it to stop. She went and she washed her face, she washed all the blood off of it best she could. He said, "Go lay down." So she did. She went in her room. She laid down. He sat on the edge of the bed for about an hour to 2 hours while she laid there in fear of her life, with nowhere to go, no way to leave. She's going to tell you that he had her phone. He was going through her phone, deleting things. He synced up her phone to his account, his iCloud account, virtually deleted every trace of himself on her phone, disabled the screen. And she's going to tell you that then he tried to lay down. And after laying there for 2 hours, after being brutally beaten, she decided to take a chance and run. And she did. She ran out of her house at 2 o'clock in the morning, barefoot, no phone, no keys, nothing. She ran over to her neighbor's house, Miss Googe, I talked about in Bordier. She begged her to let her in. Miss Googe calls 911. You're going to hear that Miss Wilson was so scared when she got to Miss Googe's house, she hid behind cabinets. She was so scared that he was going to come after her, she didn't even open the door for the police initially because she thought it was him. You're going to see the injuries sustained by Miss Wilson. And I can't exaggerate this. You're going to see a knot on her head, the size of a fist, basically, from repeatedly having her head slammed into the floor, slammed into the walls by this defendant. You're going to hear how terrified she was that night. Being trapped in her own house, with no way to call for help, nobody there but the person who had just attacked her. And I'm going to come back up here after you hear all that evidence. And I'm going to ask you to find this defendant guilty as charged of aggravated kidnapping, domestic assault, and interfering with an emergency call. Because that's exactly what happened on June the 9th of 2019. Thank you all.
Thank you, guys. Mr. Isaacs?
The opening statement's like a roadmap. In June of 2019, the road takes us to North Shore Drive, State Highway in West Knoxville. On that evening, Geoffrey Paschel and Kristen Wilson were having a night like a night they'd had for the last 2 years. They were engaged. They've been dating since 2017. You'll hear they did things like most young people do. Hiking, go to Florida. Geoffrey would go to school events because Miss Wilson was a 4th grade teacher at Sequoia Elementary. But you're going to hear, unfortunately, like a lot of people do, they went out to dinner, and the proof is going to be very candid, very straightforward. They had a number of cocktails with dinner. The state mentioned in their opening statement that the server was a friend of Miss Wilson's. Well, that could be good, and that could be bad. The friend, as you're going to hear, had a propensity or a habit of pouring drinks that were strong and drinks that were free. The young couple had an enjoyable dinner at the Brasserie Restaurant, a trendy restaurant down at the end of North Shore next to Pellissippi Parkway. And you're going to hear they went back to Miss Wilson's house like they'd done time after time after time again. But as the evening progressed, you're going to hear they went to walk the dog, went to meet some more friends, going to another bar. This is mutual. This is voluntary. Notwithstanding the fact it was 11 o'clock, the plan was, let's go out and let's continue. At some point, you're going to hear that the couple argued like most people do on occasions like this on 11 o'clock in Knox County, Tennessee, after a number of cocktails. And there was the specter of jealousy. And you're going to hear the story spin 2 different ways. One was Miss Wilson jealous of Mr. Paschel. Conversely, was Mr. Paschel jealous of Miss Wilson. Unfortunately, as we hear all too often, one party saw the other party looking at a phone, jumped to conclusions, and then here's where the road splits and diverges. You're going to hear that based on the factors, alcohol, whatever, that Miss Wilson became upset. You're going to hear that there was an argument. She injured herself leaving the house. She injured herself during the argument and the interaction with Mr. Paschel. No more, no less. You're going to see pictures. And when you see those pictures, I'm going to ask you, when I get back up here after the proof in this trial, to call upon your life experiences and your common sense. And the proof is going to show that Miss Wilson had a pump knot, significant, some inner bleeding in her mouth. And you're going to hear that happened because of injuries she incurred leaving the house down the road that Mr. Paschel is going to take us on during the course of this trial. But the state is going to tell you that Mr. Paschel brutalized her for no reason whatsoever. And it went on forever. That after walking the dog, that Mr. Paschel grabbed her by the head of the hair, began violently banging her head on the hardwood, banged it all the way up the stairs, banged it in the living room, banged it back down. Physically improbable. Physically impossible. So when you look at the evidence and you hear the divergent stories, look at your common sense, because the state's theory, for it to work, for them to say that this assault was more, if there was an assault, or this accident, after a number of strongly poured cocktails, it has to be more because the neighbor wanted to call the police. So you've gone down the rabbit hole, is what you're going to hear. But if you hear, if the proof matches the story that the state is going to present to you, you would have seen injuries that were graphic, injuries that were horrific. You would have seen someone going to the emergency room being carried out in a stretcher because, according to the state's theory, it went on and on and on and on forever. But the truth of the matter is, Ms. Wilson, were they arguing? You're going to hear yes. Were there mutual jealousy? Yes. Did she hit her head on the wall on the door frame leaving? Yes. The story's incomplete because you're going to hear it's kind of like Mark Twain, good liars give details, great liars don't. If you start telling a story and you're adding and you're diminishing, there's gaps in time that can't be explained. And the reason there's gaps at times that can't be explained because you couldn't have injured someone the way the state is going to tell you it happened. So one, we don't want to make this case a he said, she said, victimized, not victimized. This is a case of whether Mr. Paschel committed a crime beyond a reasonable doubt. And look at the injuries, look at the photos. Scrutinize the photos and look at your common sense and ask if you have a pump line, you hit the wall or you hit the door, what would present itself? If your face had been pummeled time after time after time after time, whether you would have minor bleeding or whether you would be swollen beyond belief. Injuries, yes. Caused by Mr. Paschel? No. But there's one common denominator. You had two young people that were out late, they were drinking, they were jealous, and it's unfortunate that we're here. But the road from the North Shore, from the Wilson residence to the brasserie, to walk the dog, and back, does not lead itself to a person who had dated this woman, was engaged to this woman, has young children, and the state's going to want you to believe that like a maniacal serial killer picked her up by the hair of the head and just pummeled her for minutes, upstairs, downstairs. Physically impossible. And then look at the photos. Again, the pump night doesn't look good. And we're sorry for that, but we're not going to take responsibility for doing something that we didn't do. Because we can't. So, don't get lost in the emotion. The he said, she said. Get lost in the facts and looking at your common sense, because what you're going to hear is Mr. Paschel did not inflict the wounds in a way. And then ask yourself about the gaps, the time. If she's lucid when the police come, if she's lucid when she comes to her friends, then why are there gaps of time? Because you know why there's going to be gaps of time you're going to hear? Because you can't injure someone the way Ms. Wilson said she was injured. It would be physically impossible to have inflicted the injuries the way they were by the hair of the head, upstairs, downstairs, under the wall, banging the floor, and not have been called out in an ambulance. Also, grabbed her by the back and there's bruises. Look at that. The bruises aren't right here. There are bruises that track down the spine, and there are bruises where you're going to see or hear Miss Wilson fell. This trial and the proof and the journey that you're going to go on in this trial happens all too frequently. You have two people in a relationship that care, that get along, and then you have drink after drink after drink. You have the proverbial pick the phone up. Who are you talking to? Who are you not talking to? Storming out this, that, the other. Unfortunate. Immature. But regardless of the drinks they consumed at the brasserie, regardless about who thought who was texting who, Mr. Paschel did not inflict the injuries that the state is going to seek to attribute to him on Miss Wilson. And at the end of this journey, down North Shore to the Brasserie and back, after cocktail after cocktail after cocktail, we're going to ask you to return a verdict of not guilty. Thank you.